Question number 7. What is the right balance between secular work and ministry work? That's a great question. In this sense of the word, you have to learn to balance the two. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. Things fluctuate as you have different jobs and different individuals have shift work and things like that. Everyone will try to tell you where that balance is. Always keeping God first in everything that you do, not just in the sense of church, but in the sense of what you do for employment. And when that employment begins to get in the way of what you're trying to do for the Lord, there's a conflict that's there. And so you have to decide what's right for you and how much of that you can do without what you feel is compromise. I'm not a big advocate of people telling other people where they think that line is. I think that line is different for everyone. I think it has to do with where you are at that particular time in your life. At that particular time in life, you may not have the ability to be as committed. Suppose you're married and you have a couple of 3 children. Suppose you have a house payment and a car payment. And yes, you may have gotten into debt to do that, but you're willing to work in order to do that. And you can work and balance that and to be able to have the appropriate amount of church and home time, Bible time, time of fellowship with your children. But then when all of a sudden things begin to grow bigger, a bigger house, a newer car, nicer things to have, requires more work, creating more money and having to do more time. And now we begin to see going into the minus column, we're taking time away from the Lord and the things that are important. Whenever you see that priority shift, I think that's when you're out of balance. I think as long as the Lord is first and as long as you keep Him first in your life and you have an opportunity to do both, those things are kept in proper balance. But I don't really think that anyone can legislate or dictate to you as to where that proper balance is. Many of us are called into the ministry. My commitment to the Lord may be somewhat different than yours, but I'm also have to remember I worked as a police officer for years and years and years and years. I did both of those things for a number of years until now later in life, I'm at a point where it is all I do every day, all the time. But to expect someone who's in their 20s and 30s to be able to make that same commitment without that same calling, without that same level of commitment, it's an unfair thing for me to put that on someone else. I think God has to tell you where that balance of ministry and secular work is supposed to be. Remember this, if you're taking on extra work on a day that should belong to the Lord, you're probably out of balance. If you're taking on extra work to pay for hospital bills or things that have happened that are not as a result of something you did or you desire to have out of envy or covetousness, that's probably not out of balance. It's important for you to pay your bills. It's important for you to maintain a good testimony. Just be careful not to acquire things that you can't pay for. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble and a lot of debt. And then even if you have the character to work to pay for it, you've put yourself into a bad situation and then you're out of balance. Learn to be content in whatsoever state you're in.